Hello all, and welcome to my critique of Persona 2 Eternal Punishment. This is part 3 of my Persona series, and in this video we'll be covering Eternal Punishment. If you have not watched my video on Persona 2 Innocent Sin, I highly recommend that you watch that video, as this video will spoil that game as well. If you plan to play the games at some point, I ask that you kindly leave and come back when you feel ready, as both of these games will be spoiled to their entirety. Sorry this one took a little longer to make. The script was written at some point, and then I changed audio and recording software and then got a new laptop where my original script was in my old laptop, and I can no longer recover that. Regardless, here it is. I hope you enjoy the review. Persona 2 Innocent Sin was a success, as we established in the last video. A lot of aspects of that game I critiqued and analyzed and enjoyed it quite thoroughly. I immediately began playing Persona 2 Eternal Punishment as soon as I finished Innocent Sin, and this is the culmination of that effort. This video will not be as long as the Innocent Sin video, and that's because a lot of the gameplay is shared between both games with some very minor alterations. Because of this, I believe I'll be briefer than in the last two Persona videos. Let's address the biggest elephant in the room first though. Persona 2 Eternal Punishment was released on the PlayStation 1 in 2000 and was created in 1 year following the release of Persona 2 Innocent Sin. You could say this game is kind of like The Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask. Persona 2 Eternal Punishment was given a PSP remake as well alongside its sister game, but unlike its sister game, we in the West would never see the light of it. There exists no known translation of the PSP game either. Because of this, I will be using the classic PlayStation 1 game in the background. So of course, these are my thoughts on the game based off of that version of the game. Normally, I go on to talk about narrative first and then the gameplay. I'm shaking the formula up here in this instance due to the fact that the gameplay is identical to the gameplay in Innocent Sin. If you have not seen that video, I will go over it as quickly as I can. In Persona, a group of people are gifted the abilities to have demons fight alongside them. These demons are called persona, and they reside inside every human being. Personas are a manifestation of yourself. The game is structured into different dungeons that are usually inside buildings in the overworld. You can wander around town to go and buy items, weapons, fuse persona, and gather rumors. The rumor mechanic comes back from Innocent Sin, where you can influence the items, encounters, and other miscellaneous things inside of the world. You can find rumors by going around the world and talking to NPCs who are called rumor mongers. These people are important because they can offer discounts on a lot of the different stores. Something that's important to mention is that some of the rumor mongers can tell you similar rumors with different effects. This mostly affects prices and the things that appear inside of the shop. Entering a dungeon shifts the camera to a top-down perspective. You can move the camera with the shoulder buttons. Moving in any direction causes the text on the map to turn from blue or green to yellow to red, which allows you to know when the next combat encounter will be. Once inside of combat, you are given a couple of different options. Unlike the previous game, the layout of the menu is a bit different, and while it's not a hassle once you get used to it, it's a bit strange to see the layout anyways. Regardless, you can still fight, use spells, use items, and contact demons again. Contacting demons allows you to try and obtain a different effect depending on which emotion you aim for. Making the demons glad will give you tarot cards relating to the arcana that the demon belongs to. While the UI isn't as sleek or nice as Innocent Sin, I actually ended up enjoying the layout for the game a lot. Getting used to it makes the game go by quicker and therefore play smoother. I'll talk about battles and stuff a bit later in specific detail, but let me continue the recap. You can use tarot cards you've obtained from the demons to recreate them. This allows the player to obtain more personas and gain more moves. This allows for the player to also gain more abilities and become stronger. This can be accomplished by moving over to the Velvet Room where you can create new personas. All of this stuff is extremely similar to the gameplay that was in Persona 2 Innocent Sin. It's familiar to everybody, and playing the remake of Innocent Sin and immediately jumping into Eternal Punishment is pretty smooth due to how similar both games play. Most of my criticisms for the game is exactly the same as it was for Innocent Sin. However, there is something that differentiates the two games, and that's the difficulty curve. Innocent Sin was incredibly easy. I do not think that game was even remotely challenging. However, in Eternal Punishment, that cannot be any more wrong. This could be because it's a PlayStation 1 game and so the balancing was changed for that time period, but this game is really challenging. I definitely have a bunch of game overs in this game compared to its prequel. Because of this, grinding and gaining new personas are absolutely essential, which of course now makes the persona system way better because you aren't stuck to just one single persona that will tank all kinds of damage. This is good for the variety variety of the game, and I think it's fantastic. There are some parts of the game where I do think it went a bit harder than it should have, but overall I had more fun with the combat system in this game due to the fact that it was actually more challenging and engaging. Oftentimes I had to leave party members dead to try to get the damage done to finish the fight. While some individual fights might not give you trouble, some individual fights may give you trouble, but a lot of this comes down from bosses. The bosses in this game are quite fun, and while I did struggle a lot through the game and had fun overcoming those challenges, it wasn't impossible, but there are a lot of bosses that do hit you with a difficulty curve. The gameplay ultimately doesn't change too much, which is a good thing since if you are coming from Innocent Sin, it will come to you immediately. A lot of the jankiness and other aspects of the game that aren't quite refined, like menu management, is just down to the fact that the game is on the original PlayStation and we didn't get the remake over here in the West, so you'll have to take what we can get. Before I begin, I'm going to issue another story spoiler. This was to prevent those who are listening to this rather than watching it a chance for you to go ahead and skip to the next section. I'll be sure to include chapters inside of the YouTube header so that you can comfortably use that to skip ahead. This disclaimer is for both Persona 2 Innocent Sin and for Persona 2 Eternal Punishment. That way, you don't have to be spoiled for both games. Play the game and come back, and when you do, you will find that nothing has changed. Thank you for listening, and we can go ahead and go straight into the story. Persona 2 Eternal Punishment is the sequel to the original Innocent Sin and follows the story of Maya Amano as she lives in an alternate world where the kids of Innocent Sin didn't meet up. Maya doesn't remember the events of Innocent Sin, however, but there is one person who hasn't forgotten, and that's Tatsuya Su. Tatsuya Su? I believe I remember having a problem with his last name, but Su is what I'm going to be using. He becomes a secondary character and becomes the first Persona protagonist to have a voice inside the mainline games, not including spin-offs. Maya therefore loses her ability to speak as a protagonist, and I guess it just comes with the territory. We begin the game with Maya being forced to work on a case about the Joker phenomenon, where her best friend Ulala comes along due to her and Maya having plans after work. Ulala tags along thinking if she helps Maya out quickly, they could go out and have a good time still. They go to the Seven Sisters High where they encounter some police officers investigating a case that happens to also be connected to the Joker case. They are trying to find the principal when he is murdered by the Joker. The Joker meets up with Maya and Ulala, but a third man joins them, an officer by the name of Katsuya, who happens to be Tatsuya's brother. Joker summons a monster, and Maya and Ulala awaken to their personas. Katsuya also happens to do the same, and they fight off the monster. Once they finish the monster, they are knocked unconscious where they are contacted by Philemon, who explains that the town is in danger. Joker disappears, and Katsuya says that he will accompany the women because they might be in danger, knowing they all had the same dream. They find Joker in the clock tower as he tries to force a girl to remember the events of Innocent Sin. When she doesn't, Joker gets angry and attacks the party once more. Tatsuya comes to the rescue and gives his patch to the party, saying to spread a rumor where that patch will allow them to be safe. He says to forget about him and disappears. Katsuya is pulled from the case he is working on, and due to this decides to ally with the party to find Joker. This leads the team to finding a rumor monger named Baofu who wishes to come along with them for unknown reasons. He believes that Tatsuya Sudo, not to be confused with the protagonist who has a name of So, not Sudo, and his father are connected to the Joker. They go to a mental institution to find Sudo, where he reveals that he is the Joker, and his plan is to have everyone remember the quote-unquote other side. They find out that Sudo's father sent the Taiwanese mafia over and attempts to kill Sudo, but he escapes, telling the party to go to the Sky Museum, and so, naturally with no leads, the party does. When they do, Sudo attempts to light the Sky Museum on fire to trigger the memory of Maya and the others. However, an unsuspecting individual named June happened to be there as well, and he was a character who was also in Innocent Sin. They escape to the rooftop where everyone escapes on a blimp to get out of there. This whole dungeon is a mirror to the same dungeon in Innocent Sin where you had to go help a group of innocent bystanders, and so this is the exact same replica. They escape to the roof where everyone escapes on a blimp to get out of there. Sudo appears and damages the blimp when Tatsuya comes and kills Sudo. The blimp crashes and everyone bails out of there, helping the passengers of the Sky Museum wherever they can. When everybody wakes up, Tatsuya is gone. The party continues to investigate Sudo's father, Tatsuzo. The party begins to discover a phenomenon where people have been turning into something called the New Jokers, which is said to use intense negative emotions. These people are kidnapped by Tatsuzo's organization called the New World Order. With this information, the party sets up a rumor and wonder who will show up, a male or a female. This is where the narrative breaks up. If you choose female, you'll get the Persona 1 member Eriko. If you choose male, you will end up with Kei Nanjo from Persona 1 as well. These two are working together to take down the New World Order, and depending on who you have in the party, the dungeons and what you do in them are different. I went with Eriko, and so every plot point I cover from here on out will deal with her. I don't know what the differences between Kei and Nanjo are. I do know that Nanjo has a moment with a former villain, Kandori, from the very first Persona. However, since I didn't play it, I don't really know too much about it. But moving on, the Eriko group go to Sumaru TV, where they're trying to find somebody named Wong Lang to get information. When they arrive, they are pushed into a TV, or like a TV world, where they have to try and solve a long set of puzzles to try to get out, after which you fight the lady you're looking for. Tatsuya helps you in this fight, and this includes a cameo from Lisa, who obviously doesn't remember Tatsuya or Maya. After this, the crew learns about the ultimate goal of the New World Order, which is to raise the city using a spaceship called Torifune. This will activate some dragons that would ultimately destroy the Earth's surface. But after this, the crew confront Tatsuya on the events of the entire game and why he's been acting weird and out of place. Tatsuya finally decides to explain the events of the ending of Persona 2 Innocent Sin due to Tatsuya failing to forget about the previous world. In this second world, because of the fact that Tatsuya did not forget the events of the first game, this world is on the brink of destruction. It is at this point Tatsuya joins your party permanently, replacing the Persona 1 crew depending on whoever you had, Eriko or Nanjo. The New World Order is successful in raising the city using Torifune, but the crew soon stop it, allowing the city to stay on the ground. But the main villain shows up, Nyarlathotep? Nyarl. He used to be called the Crawling Chaos, so I'm going to just call him that. I don't really know how to pronounce that. Anyway, so the Crawling Chaos drags the crew into the collective consciousness, where he has kidnapped the friends of Tatsuya and the Persona Innocent Sin crew. In this dungeon, every character has to go and face their self, their own Persona self, and doing so will release a party member from the original Innocent Sin crew. But once everybody releases the Innocent Sin crew, they face off Crawling Chaos, or Nyarlathotep. Yeah. Once he is defeated, Tatsuya finally decides to accept his fate and return back to the world he came from, the world where Maya was killed. Now, this world's Tatsuya will not have anything to do with the events of Innocent Sin, allowing this version of him to be free. This ends the main game's events with the final epilogue showing Maya seeing the new Tatsuya of this world. She walks off instead of talking to him, and she smiles as the game fades to the credits. Something I wasn't able to touch on during the main events of the narrative because of the fact that we were just going straight through is the fact that a lot of the dungeons are reused from Innocent Sin. Understandably so, of course, because, 1 year is really not a lot of time to make a game. One of the things that I thought was pretty interesting is the reuse of the dungeons and how they affect the story. Some dungeons are done in different orders, like the Sky Museum is, I think, the third dungeon of the game, so that kind of makes it go by interestingly. Some of the context is the mountain pass from Innocent Sin, where you had to go and fight Hitler up in the top, is done completely early, and it's really just so you can get to the asylum early in the game. So a lot of the dungeons are repurposed in this game so that they're different. It doesn't add any negatives to the game itself. I just wanted to point that out just because obviously there are a lot of aspects of that are used, but from a narrative perspective it makes sense. You're still in the same world and events are happening differently, so of course they wanting to use a different reason for you to be there is a pretty good idea and helps probably save time and money. But something that I think should be said is that they reuse dungeons quite often. There's a lot to talk about when it comes to the plot, so allow me to start off by saying this. The plot itself isn't exactly amazing or stand out. The overarching narrative is rather simple and does what it needs to do so that you have a game. This is kind of a recurring thing with the past couple of games where the plots were just okay, except for Innocent Sin. So I really just mean Persona 1. Persona 1 and Persona Eternal Punishment don't have any amazing overarching narrative, but there are things that make them stand out. The thing that both the games do, and this one in particular does really well, is tell a good story with its main characters. While the main plot itself isn't anything super wild or crazy, the character writing and plot lines they go through are fantastic, to be honest. And instead of talking about the plot any longer, I actually want to talk about the character writing and how good it is. But I can't yet, because I have to to do one rant, because before we move on to the characters, I just want to say the dungeons in this game are so bad. There's a lot of moments in this game where you get lost, and it's not because of the map that they give you in the game. The map is really good. It's fine. That's how I got out. But the dungeon layouts are ridiculous. Sometimes you'll fall down, then you'll have to go around, and then you'll have to go up, and then you'll have to go down, and then you'll have to circle around to go back up again to find the right path. And I just think that the dungeon layout is just atrocious. I don't know why they did that. It's probably to make the game longer. I don't know if it's better or worse than Persona 1, the remake. I honestly genuinely think that they're both pretty shit. But in this particular case, I'm gonna only say that Persona 2 is only slightly better because the map is better and you can probably start to memorize things. I do not like the dungeons in Persona 1, but that's a different rant for another time. That's a Persona 1 video, even though it's already out. But anyways, enough of that tangent. Let's talk about the best part, the characters. Alright, let's get through the characters. This is something that I wanted to talk about because I think the character writing for this game is absolutely phenomenal. Let's start with the main character of the game, Maya Amano. She's somebody I can relate to a lot because we share the same zodiac sign of the Cancer sign. She's a bright and bubbly person who usually goes out of her way to cheer people up. Because she's a protagonist of the game, however, they did the one thing I wish they didn't do, and they made her mute, so she just doesn't talk whatsoever. Because of this, she really only emotes with her portrait while having some dialogue choices to complement that. She only talks during combat and in contacting demons, like her physical voice. Her character arc, though, is still here, relatively. She's looking for Tatsuya most of the time because she feels a big sense of deja vu when she sees him. Thus, she ends up calling him the Deja Vu Boy, which she ends up sharing with Ulala. She ignores his advice and goes out of her way to find her own answers, which gives her that go-get-em attitude. Although she takes a backseat to other characters in the game, she's still a very fantastic character, and I think she's a great lead. Maya keeps her persona from the first game, and that persona still uses the water, which is ironic because that's her sign. The Cancer sign is the sign of water. The next character on the list is Katsuya. I kind of find him an interesting character too because at first I really didn't like him. He's the archetype of character who wants to do good by other people. He's a cop, so he wants to follow the rules. He constantly gets into disagreements with Baofu. He has a pretty good relationship with Maya, and she can even make him blush, but that's kind of it. Him and Ulala get along pretty decently. I don't really remember a lot happening between the two of them, other than him wanting to protect her by coming along with him and Maya. But his love for his little brother is what makes him stand out for me. I relate to him a lot because I'm an older brother myself, and he wants to do right by his brother. Later on in the game, Baofu reveals that Katsuya keeps a portion of his salary to the side to have so that he can give it to Tatsuya when he's older. Katsuya usually is the one person who tries to talk to Baofu about his actions because they aren't as moral as Katsuya would want them to be. This culminates to the part where Katsuya calls out to Baofu for his real name, which is Kaori Saga. Regardless, this is what causes Baofu to reveal the information about Tatsuya. He's a pretty decent character, but his dynamics with Baofu are really what I ended up enjoying from his character the most. His power is the power of fire, just like his brother Tatsuya. If Chie didn't exist, Ulala would 100% be my wife. I promise you guys that. Her character arc comes about midway through the game, or a quarter, where she becomes a new Joker. She locks herself up and becomes a Joker where the party have to fight her. She becomes jealous of Maya and holds a lot of resentment towards her. Ulala feels like a failure due to trying to do the best she can, but is overshadowed by Maya's efforts. When Ulala went out drinking, she was then taken over by the Joker curse, which she then became a new Joker. Afterwards, she is cleared of the curse and continues with the party, eventually accepting her shadow self in the end of the game. She's got an exceptional hot-headed personality that translates to her in-game. Her power is the power of the Earth sign. Last new character is Baofu. Baofu is the coolest character ever introduced, and I will not take anyone's word for it. He tags along the group because he wants to try and kill Tatsuzo. Baofu was born as Kaoru Saga, as I mentioned earlier, and he was a public prosecutor who made enemies with Tatsuzo, who marked Kaoru for dead. Instead, his wife or girlfriend, I don't really remember which one, was killed instead. Her name was Miki. He was targeted because he was investigating Tatsuzo's money laundering. When he survives the ordeal, he awakens to his persona, Odysseus. This also leads Baofu to end up hating personas, something he briefly mentions while inside of the Velvet Room, but not outside of it. Because of this is automatically an immediate change of character from any other character we've seen in the series. Every character uses their persona for their own gain or benefit, but Kaoru or Baofu doesn't. He does not like anything involving personas. He still uses them for his benefit, but that doesn't mean he has to like them. His character arc has him accepting the past and choosing to move on with his life. He's seen at the end partnering up with Ulala, and this ends the character arc that he's been building up. He begins the game with the power of wind. This next part is a little hard to talk about because, again, you can have two characters in the game, and I'm not sure which one is which. So I'm going to be talking about Eriko because of the fact that she is the character that I had. I do find her very compelling though. During the television visit where you go and find the woman that you're looking for to gain information about Tatsuzo and what he's doing, she has to fight off a stalker who wants to keep talking to her and continue to stalk her. Ulala comes to her rescue to help her fight that guy off, and during this we get to know more about what happened to her and at the end of the Persona 1 game, where the main protagonist of that game is seen wanting Eriko to keep a promise. This is really cool to see the protagonist of that game making a small cameo, but also he gets to talk and has his own personality. Regardless, it's a cool cameo and sheds some light on what her feelings were towards the boy with the earring, who doesn't have a name, but I'm gonna call him that because the boy with the earring is what the game calls him. Clearly, she holds him close to her heart even now after all this time, and I just thought it was a really good storyline. All of the main characters except for Tatsuya are adults, and I have to say this is my favorite crew so far. I think the adult angle is quite fun, and it's nice to see a lot of different aspects of the people who talk and say things that kids or teenagers can't really talk about. Things like Baofu and his revenge story, Ulala and her resentment towards Maya, Katsuya and his wanting to see his brother grow up and putting money away from him. These are really important things, and I'm glad that they were included in the game to begin with. Not to shit on the other groups, but these are my homies 100%. I think that they're the best group ever that we've ever developed. The thing about Eternal Punishment is that I don't really have a lot to say about it. I think it's a really solid game structurally. I think the gameplay feels better and more fluid than the original Innocent Sin. Not even the original Innocent Sin, the remake of Innocent Sin, as a matter of fact. The dungeons, while not being absolutely amazing, were actually pretty cool because of the fact that the combat started to become good and was fun. The thing that makes it fun is the balancing for the combat makes the game challenging. Because it's challenging, the game is refreshing and nice to actually play. The story is okay, but the character writing and the arcs they go through are some of the best in the series, and I personally think if you haven't played it, you should. Innocent Sin and Eternal Punishment are fantastic games, each in their own right. Innocent Sin has a better story to tell, but Eternal Punishment complements that story with its gameplay and characters. Not much has changed from game to game, so this video isn't exactly going to be the biggest video that I make. This is in part due to the fact that both games play extremely similar. The only thing that lacks in Eternal Punishment is a better, cleaner UI and the fact that the game is literally on a PlayStation 1. The game is very solid, and I recommend that anybody who has never played Persona 2 Eternal Punishment play it after they play Innocent Sin, as you cannot start Eternal Punishment without at least knowing what's going on in the story from Innocent Sin. If we ever got the remake in English, I don't know whether or not I would enjoy it because of the fact that the remake seems to enjoy making things easier. I personally wish they didn't. So if you haven't played it, I highly recommend that you play it, even if it's a little stilted because of the fact that it's on a PlayStation 1. I didn't have a lot more to mention about music or any of the superficial stuff, only because of the fact that it's all good. You already know it. I know it. I'm going to probably be sprinkling in a lot of the music throughout the video, so you'll have a taste of what it sounds like. Again, one of the only problems with the game is stuff I've already mentioned, and that's it. When I do eventually Persona 3, because I'm actually dreading it, it's going to be a much longer video due to the fact that I have to explain and cover all of the new gameplay mechanics that go into Persona 3 rather than Eternal Punishment. This game really doesn't have a lot to offer in the sense that there's nothing new that was added. So because of that, I don't have a lot to add. That being said, I do hope you guys enjoy yourselves. I hope you enjoyed this video. I want to start making more content. I have another video in the works already. I have a new project starting with the GTA series, so I hope that you guys enjoy the GTA games. If not, that's okay. There's going to be more Persona eventually. I know I had a plan that stated I was going to go through each of the Persona games, but at the rate it's going, it's probably not doing great. I just released the new Zelda video, so I hope you guys check that out. And that's it. I hope you guys have a good one. Thank you for checking this video.